My wife cheated on me with our divorce lawyer, and now she's claiming I owe her $250, $0 in property settlement, even though I found out she secretly sold our family home for half that price behind my back. Hello everyone. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now let's begin the video. Using a throwaway for obvious reasons with certain specifics modified to preserve anonymity. I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, writing about how my wife, Lisa, turned out to be a complete lying, cheating bitch. Honestly, I thought we had a solid marriage. We had our fights, sure, but I always believed we were in it together. That was until I started noticing the little things, things I brushed off at first, but that soon added up to a mountain of betrayal I couldn't ignore anymore. It all started a few months ago when Lisa's phone started acting weird. She'd hide it whenever I entered the room, texting like her life depended on it. At first, I figured she was just talking to friends or maybe planning something for her sisters, baby shower or whatever. But then I noticed she was deleting messages, clearing her call history. She'd get tense if I asked who she was texting, her usual bitchy attitude kicking in with excuses like, "It's just work stuff, don't be so paranoid," or "You're imagining things, you always jump to conclusions." She was always bitchy when I brought up her secretive behavior, snapping at me, saying I was just insecure and jealous. But I was. I knew something was off. The real kicker was when I caught her in a lie about her whereabouts one afternoon. She said she was at her sister's house helping with a baby shower, but I saw her car parked at a different house, one that I later found out belonged to her lawyer, Mark. That's when the alarm bells really started ringing. Then came the night I accidentally saw her phone light up with a message from Mark, something about meeting up later, and a heart emoji. I froze. I looked at her when she was sleeping next to me, and for a second I thought I was dreaming. It was the first time I felt that sick, sinking feeling in my gut that told me my wife was screwing around. She had been lying all along, hiding her affair behind a wall of bullshit. And it wasn't just sex. I found out she had been sneaking around with Mark for months, probably since before we even started the divorce proceedings. She'd been telling me she wanted to work things out, that she loved me, but behind my back, she was planning her escape with the guy who was supposed to help us settle our divorce. It was so sickening, I couldn't even process how someone I trusted, someone I thought I knew, could do this to me. When I finally confronted her, I didn't hold back. I told her I knew about her and Mark and I wanted the truth. Her reaction was classic Lisa. She started crying, claiming she was just lonely, that Mark was just a friend, that I was overreacting. She looked me straight in the eye and lied through her teeth, saying she never cheated, that I was crazy for even thinking it. But I had proof, texts, emails, even her bank statements showing how she'd been funneling money into secret accounts to meet Mark. The thing is, she's a master manipulator. She's always been good at lying, at twisting stories to make herself look innocent. That's what made her so dangerous. She's bitchy and narcissistic, always playing the victim, never taking responsibility. She's the kind of woman who can lie right to your face and make you doubt your own sanity. I felt like I was losing my mind, caught in a web of her lies. The emotional impact hit me hard. I was furious, of course. How could she do this? After everything we'd been through, she was cheating, lying, and planning her escape behind my back. But underneath that anger was a deep sadness. I loved her once. I wanted to believe in us. I kept asking myself, how did it come to this? How did I miss the signs? And more importantly, how could she be so cold, so willing to destroy our marriage over some guy? I spent nights lying awake, replaying everything, trying to understand why she did it. Was I not good enough? Did I fail somehow? Or was she just that selfish? I couldn't wrap my head around it. The betrayal cut so deep, it felt like my chest was being crushed. I kept thinking about what I'd lost, our home, our future, the trust we built over years. And right then, I knew I had to do something. I couldn't let her get away with this, not without some kind of reckoning. So I started planning my next move. I wasn't going to let her walk all over me, especially not after she'd sold our family home for half its worth behind my back, all while telling me she was doing everything to save our marriage. I had no idea she was secretly cashing out, planning her escape, and lying to my face the entire time. That was the moment I decided I'd fight back, no matter what it took. If she thought she could cheat, lie, and then just walk away with my money, she had another thing coming. I wasn't just going to accept her bullshit and let her take everything. No, I was going to make her pay in her own game on her own terms. That's when I started setting my trap, gathering evidence, and plotting how I'd turn her lies against her. Because if she thought she could cheat and get away with it, she was dead wrong. After I confronted Lisa and she lied her way out of it, I knew I couldn't just sit back and let her keep pulling the strings. I'd always been a straightforward guy, but her betrayal changed everything. I started digging into her financials, trying to piece together what she'd been hiding. That's when I discovered she'd secretly sold our family home. Not only that, she'd done it behind my back for half the real value of the property. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. The house was supposed to be our future, our stability. We bought it together, poured money into renovations, made it our sanctuary, and she just sold it without telling me, pocketing the difference. I found out about the sale from a real estate agent's email sent to her private account. The sale had gone through a month ago, and she'd already moved into a new place. I couldn't believe the extent of her deception. She had been planning her escape for months, probably even before she started the affair with Mark. I remember the day I found out vividly. I was going through our joint bank account statements because I wanted to see if she was hiding anything else. When I saw the sale of the house, I almost couldn't breathe. The sale price was shockingly low, half of what the house was worth. I called the agent, confirmed it was her signature, and realized she'd been lying to me the entire time about her intentions. She'd been telling me she wanted to fix things, that she loved me, but she was secretly cashing out and planning her departure. My head was spinning. I felt betrayed, furious, and helpless all at once. The house was supposed to be our family's legacy, and she just sold it like it was some last-minute garage sale. I started piecing together the timeline. She'd been talking about needing space, saying she was overwhelmed with the divorce process, but behind the scenes she was making moves. I couldn't believe how cold she'd been, lying, selling our home, and still pretending everything was fine. I decided I needed to confront her again, this time with evidence. I called her at work one afternoon and told her I knew everything. Her reaction was classic Lisa. She got defensive, started crying, and told me I was overreacting, that I was just jealous and paranoid. She said she was just trying to get ahead, that she had to sell the house because she was facing foreclosure or some other bullshit. But I knew better. I knew she'd sold it for half its worth to a friend of her lawyer, Mark. She was trying to spin it as something she did out of necessity, but I saw through her lies. The thing is, Lisa's good at lying. She's bitchy, manipulative, and can twist any story to her advantage. That's how she's always gotten her way, by lying, smirking, and making me doubt myself. She's the type of woman who can look you in the eye and tell you she's innocent while secretly planning her escape with some guy she met on the side. And the worst part, she's been doing it all while pretending to be the perfect wife, smiling, cooking dinner, acting like everything was fine. That's when I realized I was dealing with a master manipulator. I started feeling a mix of anger and despair. How could she do this? How could she sell our home without telling me, then come home and pretend everything was normal? That betrayal cut so deep. I felt physically sick. I kept thinking about all the years we'd spent building a life together, only to find out she'd been secretly plotting her escape. I felt like such a fool for trusting her. Now, I knew I had to act fast. I couldn't let her get away with this. I started gathering all the evidence I could, emails, bank statements, legal documents. I even hired a private investigator to confirm her activities. I wanted proof that would stand up in court, because I knew she'd try to spin it all to make herself look innocent. And I also knew she was planning to claim I owed her a ridiculous sum, $250, zero in property settlement, which she's now trying to enforce in court. Her plan was to make me look like the bad guy, to take everything I had left. But I wasn't going down without a fight. I was furious at her for selling the house behind my back, for lying to me about everything, and for trying to squeeze me out of my own property. It was like she'd been playing a game the whole time, and I was just the pawn. That's when I decided I'd fight her in court, expose her lies, and make sure she paid for what she'd done. The shock and anger kept fueling me. Every time I thought about how she'd betrayed me, my blood boiled. I couldn't believe I married someone so selfish, so manipulative. But I also knew I couldn't let her win. I had to stand my ground, protect what was mine, and show her that I wasn't going to be her puppet anymore. I'd learn the truth, and I'd make her regret ever crossing me. Once I had all the evidence of the house sale, I knew I had to act fast. I couldn't let Lisa keep spinning her lies or try to claim I owed her some huge property settlement. Her latest move was to threaten me with court papers demanding $250, $0, claiming it was our fair share of the property and assets. But I had proof she'd sold the house for half its value behind my back, and that changes everything. I reached out to a lawyer I found through a friend, someone who specialized in divorce and property disputes. I needed someone who could help me navigate her bullshit and protect my rights. First thing I did was send her a cease and desist letter, demanding she stop all legal action until we could settle this properly. I also started compiling everything I had: texts, emails, bank statements, the sale agreement, and handed it over to my lawyer. I wanted her to see that I wasn't just some guy caught off guard. I was prepared to fight for what's rightfully mine. Meanwhile, Lisa kept up her act. She was bitchy and dismissive, telling everyone that I was just jealous and that I was trying to ruin her reputation. She's good at playing the victim, crying to her friends about how I was abusive, controlling, and trying to take everything. But I knew better. I had the evidence, and I was ready to expose her lies in court. I could see her panic starting to set in, especially when I told her I was filing for a formal legal dispute over the property. Her face turned pale, and she started spinning more stories about how she deserved her share and that I was just trying to screw her over. The emotional toll was intense. Every day brought new surprises, more lies, more manipulations. I would wake up feeling betrayed, then get angry, then frustrated because I knew she was just trying to wear me down. I kept asking myself how she could be so cold, so calculating. She had sold our home, lied about her affair, and was now trying to claim a massive property settlement that was just not fair or legal. I felt like I was fighting a war I didn't start but was determined to finish. I also started digging into the legal side of things. I learned that in our state, the courts considered the true value of the property, not the sale price. So, her argument that she deserved a big chunk of the property based on the sale was nonsense. I made sure my lawyer understood that, and I had him prepare to challenge her claim in court. I knew she'd try to spin it as her right, but I was ready to fight back with everything I had. I also hired a forensic accountant to verify the sale amount and see if she had any other hidden assets. The more I uncovered, the more I realized how deep her deception went. She'd been planning her escape for months, maybe even longer. She'd been secretly funneling money into accounts, selling off assets, and lying to me about her true intentions. I couldn't believe I married someone so manipulative and selfish. The betrayal wasn't just emotional anymore. It was financial, legal, and personal. I felt like I'd been stabbed in the back by the person I trusted most. Her lies were starting to unravel fast. I caught her in a few more contradictions, and I could tell she was panicking. She tried to spin her story, claiming she only sold the house because she was forced, that she was just trying to protect her future, and that I was a terrible husband for accusing her of everything. But I had the proof: emails where she discussed selling the house, bank statements showing the transfer of funds, and the sale agreement with her signature. I knew I could use all of this to prove she'd been dishonest from the start. I also made it clear to her that I was not going to let her manipulate the courts or the situation anymore. I told her I was prepared to go to trial if necessary, to get everything sorted once and for all. Her bitchy attitude only got worse. She accused me of being greedy, jealous, and controlling, but I didn't care. I was done playing her game. I could see her plans crumbling, and that gave me a strange sense of relief mixed with rage. In the end, I realized that her entire scheme was built on lies, deception, and manipulation. She thought she could sell our home, cheat on me, and then demand a fortune, all while pretending to be the innocent victim. But I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I had the evidence, the legal backing, and the resolve to fight her every step of the way. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about standing up for myself, reclaiming what was mine, and making sure she paid for her betrayal. The truth was finally starting to come out, and I was determined to see it through. The court date was set, and I knew I had to be prepared for everything. Lisa's lawyer was doing her best to spin the story, painting her as the victim, claiming she needed the money to start fresh, and that I was just trying to drag her down out of greed. But I had the truth on my side, and I made sure my evidence was airtight. I spent days reviewing everything: the sale documents, the bank transfers, the emails, and the legal opinions. I even hired a forensic accountant to quantify just how much she'd undervalued the house and how much she'd really gotten from the sale. The morning of the hearing, I felt a knot in my stomach. I was nervous, but mostly angry. I couldn't believe how far she'd gone, selling our home, lying about everything, and now trying to claim a huge sum in property settlement. I had to be strong, clear, and precise. I knew she'd try to manipulate the judge, so I prepared a presentation of all the evidence, timeline, and legal arguments to back up my case. When the courtroom doors swung open and I saw her sitting there, bitchy and smug, I realized how much I'd underestimated her. She looked confident, like she was already planning her next move. But that confidence was just a mask. I could see the flicker of panic in her eyes when she saw me walk in with my lawyer, ready to fight. She knew she was caught, and she knew I wasn't going to let her get away with it. The hearing started with her lawyer trying to claim that Lisa deserved a significant property settlement because she'd contributed to the home's value and that she needed the money for her new life. She even tried to paint me as the villain, saying I was controlling, emotionally abusive, and that I'd been neglecting her. I couldn't help but roll my eyes at her bullshit. I stood up and presented my evidence: the sale agreement, the appraisals, the bank statements. I explained how she'd secretly sold the house for half its worth, how she'd been planning this for months, and that her claims of hardship were just a desperate attempt to squeeze more money out of me. The judge listened carefully, asking pointed questions about the sale. I could see Lisa squirming as I laid out the facts. I told the court that she'd undervalued the property intentionally and that her claim for a large settlement was based on her lies. I emphasized that I'd been blindsided, that I'd trusted her, and that her actions had caused significant financial and emotional damage. Lisa's lawyer tried to argue that I was trying to punish her, but the judge wasn't buying it. The judge asked Lisa directly about the sale, and she had to admit that she'd sold the house behind my back. She tried to spin it, saying she was forced to sell because she was facing foreclosure. But I presented the emails and bank transfers to prove she'd been planning it for months. The judge looked at her with skepticism and then turned to me, asking for my side. I laid out everything clearly, showing how her actions were dishonest and how she'd been manipulating the situation from the start. By the end of the hearing, the judge made a ruling that stunned Lisa. He ordered her to return the full sale proceeds, minus what she'd already spent, and to pay me damages for the undervaluation of the property. He also dismissed her claim for the $250, $0 in property settlement, stating that her deception nullified her right to that amount. I felt a huge wave of relief washing over me. For the first time, I saw her face fall, her confidence evaporating, and I realized that justice was finally catching up with her. After the court, I felt exhausted but victorious. I knew this wasn't the end, not yet. Lisa was furious, calling me every name in the book, accusing me of ruining her life. But I didn't care. I'd fought for what was rightfully mine and had finally exposed her lies. I knew she'd try to come back to manipulate the situation, but I was ready. I'd learned a lot about trust, betrayal, and how far some people would go to get what they want. And I also learned that sometimes the truth will out, even if it takes a court hearing to finally make it happen. That day, I realized I had to rebuild my life from the ground up. I'd lost a lot, but I'd gained clarity. I'd seen the real Lisa, the manipulative, selfish woman she always was, and I was finally free from her grip. Now, I just had to focus on healing, moving on, and making sure she never pulled this kind of stunt on anyone else again. The aftermath was a whirlwind, but I finally felt like I could breathe again. Lisa's reaction to the court's decision was exactly what I expected. She was furious, screaming, crying, yelling that I'd ruined her life, that I was a monster for taking her to court. But honestly, I felt nothing but a strange sense of relief. All the lies, the sneaking around, the selling of the house behind my back, everything was out in the open now. The court had seen through her bullshit, and justice had been served, at least on some level. In the days that followed, I focused on rebuilding myself. I changed the locks on the house, started looking for a new place, and cut all contact with Lisa. I couldn't stand the thought of her continuing to manipulate or guilt-trip me anymore. Honestly, I was exhausted, emotionally drained from the roller coaster of betrayal, anger, and finally, victory. But I knew I had to stay strong, not just for myself but for my kids, who deserved stability and honesty. One of the strangest parts of this whole ordeal was dealing with her ongoing attempts to manipulate the situation. She kept claiming I owed her money, even after the court had dismissed her claims. She sent me a series of angry texts, threatening to sue me for unfair property division, and claiming I was trying to cheat her out of her rightful share, but I had all the legal documents showing her sale was undervalued, and I had hired a forensic accountant to verify everything. The more she tried to spin her lies, the more I realized how desperate she was to hold on to something, anything, that would give her control. But I wasn't going to fall for it. I learned in this process that her bitchy attitude and manipulations were just her way of trying to save face. She's good at pretending to be the victim, but I saw through her now. I knew she'd try to come back with some new scheme, maybe even try to guilt me into giving her more money, but I was done listening. I had my evidence, my lawyer, and my own resolve. I knew that I had done everything by the book, and I was proud of how I'd handled it. The most surprising thing was how much I'd grown through this ordeal. I'd always been a straightforward guy, trusting, maybe too much. But now I see that sometimes people like Lisa will do anything to get what they want, even if it means destroying everything you've built. I learned to be more cautious, more aware of the red flags, and most importantly, to trust my instincts. I also learned that sometimes the only way to get justice is to fight for it, even if it means going through hell first. I've started therapy to work through the emotional scars. It's been helpful, honestly. I still get angry thinking about how she betrayed me, but I also feel a sense of closure now. I don't hate her, I just see her for what she is. A selfish, manipulative person who thought she could get away with everything. Now I'm focused on moving forward. I've sold the house, started saving again, and I plan to take things slow. I want a fresh start, free from her lies and schemes. Looking back, I realize I've learned a lot about trust and betrayal. I know now that not everyone has your best interests at heart. But I also know that standing up for yourself, even when it's hard, is the only way to truly move on. I hope my story helps someone else out there who's dealing with betrayal or manipulative partners. It's not easy, and it hurts like hell. But in the end, honesty and integrity matter more than any lie or scheme. And sometimes fighting for the truth is the only way to reclaim your life. I don't regret standing my ground. If anything, it's made me stronger. And I want anyone reading this to know that even in the darkest moments, there's a way out. You just have to be brave enough to find it. Now, sitting here reflecting on everything that's happened, I realize how much I've changed. I went from trusting blindly to being cautious, from loving someone blindly to seeing her for who she truly was. The betrayal was a brutal wake-up call, but it also taught me resilience. I learned that some people are just plain selfish, will lie, cheat, and manipulate to get what they want, regardless of how much it hurts others. Lisa was one of those people. She thought she could play me, sell our home, cheat on me, and then walk away with a clean conscience. But I showed her that no matter how much she lied or how clever she thought she was, the truth always comes out. Looking back, I see the whole thing as a lesson in self-worth. I was willing to fight for what was rightfully mine, not just because of the money or the house, but because I deserved honesty and respect. I don't regret exposing her or standing up for myself. If anything, I'm grateful I found the strength to do it. It's made me realize that sometimes you have to fight dirty, or at least fight smart, to protect what's yours. The most important thing I've learned is that betrayal cuts deep, but it also reveals true character. Lisa's true colors showed through her lies and manipulations, and I'm glad I saw them before it was too late. I was naive once, trusting people too easily, but now I know better. I know that not everyone has your best interest at heart, and that's okay. Not everyone deserves your trust, and sometimes you have to take matters into your own hands to protect yourself. I also learned that revenge isn't about getting even. It's about justice. I didn't want to hurt her just for the sake of hurting her. I wanted to restore my dignity and ensure she couldn't walk all over me anymore. The court victory was proof that honesty and integrity still matter in this world, and that the truth will always come out in the end. I feel lighter now, like I've finally closed that chapter of my life and moved on from the pain she caused. Most of all, I've realized that life moves forward, and no matter how bad things get, you can always find a way to heal and rebuild. I'm not the same man I was when I first discovered her affair. I'm stronger, wiser, and more aware. I've started over, and I'm determined to make a better future for myself and my kids. I want to be the kind of person who learns from the past, who doesn't let betrayal define him. So to anyone out there going through something similar, trust your instincts, gather your evidence, and don't be afraid to stand your ground. The truth might be ugly, but it's always better than living in a lie. And in the end, you'll come out the other side stronger, wiser, and ready to build a new life, one based on honesty, respect, and real trust. That's what I'm doing now, and I know I'll be okay.